The man who brought light into our dark, stagnant world was the one who changed everything. Mom, who neglected us, and Dad, who drank and raged. Our filthy, cramped apartment was always shrouded in gloom. The curtains, stained yellow from cigarettes, suited the closed windows. "Mom, I'm hungry," I'd say. She'd throw a half-eaten snack at me with an irritated look. Dad was snoring, at least giving us a moment's peace, safe from his fists. My sister, Elizabeth, who was 4 years older, sat in the corner, watching TV. At the time, I had no idea what kind of work my parents did, but I lived my life constantly tensed, avoiding Mom's moods and Dad's violence. Elizabeth would pull me close, wrapping her arms around me. It's okay, I'm here." And she whispered. That day, too, the door suddenly pounded. Elizabeth and I both jumped. It was Mr. Smith, the debt collector. For some reason, our parents were always gone when he showed up. Elizabeth quietly opened the thin, battered door of the apartment. "They're not here again, huh?" She nodded. He clicked his tongue, came into the room, and sat in the middle of our cramped space. Elizabeth held my hand and led me to sit in the corner, both of us watching Mr. Smith. "Honestly, this place is filthy, disgusting," he muttered, maybe to himself, maybe for us to hear, and lit his 5th cigarette. Elizabeth gripped my hand tightly. We knew the routine by now. Once he finished 5 cigarettes, he'd leave. Just then, my stomach growled. I hadn't eaten since lunch yesterday. Mr. Smith looked over at me. "You're hungry." I shook my head. "Not cute at all." He scoffed as he stood up, heading for the door. But just before leaving, he threw something at me. "If you find a rare sticker in there, give it back," he said. The door slammed shut with force, and I looked at what had been thrown to me. It was a box of Cracker Jack. "He gave this to us," I said, and split it in half with Elizabeth. "No rare sticker this time," she said, smiling. I nodded, smiling back. From then on, every time Mr. Smith came, he'd bring a box of Cracker Jack. Sometimes when Dad was home, Mr. Smith would yell and even punch him. On those days, we'd hide in the next room, trembling. "Get it ready by next time, you bastard," Mr. Smith would yell, slamming the door as he left. Dad, muttering curses, would then lie down with his cheap booze. Elizabeth and I would look toward the entrance. "Elizabeth, did he leave them?" "Yay, he did." 2 boxes of Cracker Jack would be there on the dirty shoe rack by the door. We'd smile. Then came school break. We were hungry every day. When Mom left, she'd be gone for days. And Dad was no different. That day was unbearably hot. Elizabeth and I drank water to fight the hunger. Dad came home unusually early, but he seemed even more irritable than usual. "Get lost, you two. Your hot, miserable faces make me sick." We didn't understand why, but then Elizabeth said to Dad, "I'm hungry." "What?" Elizabeth repeated herself. "I'm hungry." "Shut up. Feed yourselves if you're so hungry." Dad snapped and suddenly slapped Elizabeth's face. Her small body flew back, hitting the wall. I ran to her side, shouting, "Elizabeth! Elizabeth! Shut up!" And then, suddenly, "No, you shut up, you bastard." At that voice, Dad was the one sent flying this time. I looked up and saw Mr. Smith. "Don't ever hit a kid," he growled, smashing Dad's head against the wall, his face blazing with fury. I started crying in fear. Blood was trickling from Elizabeth's temple. "Head to the office now. You earn your own food, don't you?" Mr. Smith told Dad, who quickly left the apartment as if fleeing. "What a good-for-nothing," he muttered, then looked over at us. "Hey, you're bleeding from the head. Are you all right?" Elizabeth reached into her pocket, pulling something out and handing it to Mr. Smith. He looked at it suspiciously. A sticker. Elizabeth nodded. No rare one, though. Mr. Smith sighed and lit a cigarette, looking down at the sticker she'd handed him. After finishing his cigarette, he said, "Come with me." Mr. Smith drove us about 30 minutes to another apartment. Inside was messy, but it was spacious and had large windows. "I'll bring food. Live as you like." He then put a bandage on Elizabeth's head, talking on his phone to someone. "Yay, let the father know the kids are here with me, and he hasn't been feeding them." "Yay, got it." He hung up and headed out again. When he returned that evening, he brought food, orange juice, Cracker Jack, and our school bags. Elizabeth and I ate the food and fell asleep in each other's arms. We weren't scared. I had Elizabeth with me. I didn't know what Mr. Smith did for a living, but he would head out day and night without saying much, bringing food back every day. There was no more shouting or insults. Dad wasn't there to lash out in a drunken rage. To us, it felt like heaven. "David, let's clean up." While Mr. Smith was out, Elizabeth and I started cleaning the place. There wasn't much else to do, and with our stomachs full, we felt strong. As we cleaned up, Elizabeth sang. When Elizabeth was cheerful, I felt cheerful too. I didn't understand why Mr. Smith had taken us in, but I was grateful. "What's your name?" "Elizabeth." "David." "How old are you?" 11. 7. "What do you like?" When Elizabeth answered, "Cracker Jack," Mr. Smith laughed out loud for the first time. When the school break ended, we went to school from Mr. Smith's place. I felt embarrassed and sad sometimes, but as long as Elizabeth was beside me, I was okay. "Elizabeth, is Mr. Smith a good person or a bad person?" I asked her one night in bed. "Probably both," she replied. "Are we going to live here forever?" "I don't know. Do you want to go back?" "As long as I'm with you, I'm fine anywhere, but it's nice here because we have food." "Yay," she said. "Let's grow up quickly and live together, just the two of us." I nodded and fell asleep. After a while, Mr. Smith started leaving money instead of food. "Use it however you need." "Elizabeth, you're going to junior high next year, right? I don't know what you need or how much, so figure it out yourself. I'll cover what's necessary." With the money Mr. Smith left, we bought groceries and things we needed for school. Every time we went shopping, we'd buy 3 packs of Cracker Jack and give one to Mr. Smith. "This stuff is rigged. There's no way any rare stickers are in these packs," Mr. Smith would say each time he opened one, and we'd all laugh. Then, shortly after Elizabeth started junior high, Mr. Smith came home one day and said to us, "Do you two want to see your mom? She contacted me and says she wants to meet." "Mom does." "Yay, she's your mom after all. If you want to go back, go ahead. She's separated from your dad and living alone now. Here's her address. Go if you want." After saying that, he ate the pizza Elizabeth had made. Elizabeth stared at the slip of paper he handed her. That weekend, after finishing our usual cleaning routine, Elizabeth said, "Let's go see Mom." "We're not coming back here." "I don't know. Let's meet Mom and decide." Elizabeth left a note saying, "We're going to Mom's," and we left Mr. Smith's apartment. The address was in a town we didn't know, about an hour away by train from where Mr. Smith lived. We held hands as we made our way to the address we'd been given. It doesn't make up for it, but I'm so sorry for everything. I've really thought about it. If you two are okay with it, I'd like us to live together again." Mom, whom we hadn't seen in a while, looked a bit tired but managed a smile as she spoke. Mr. Smith had said she was alone, but there were men's clothes in the room. "It's nothing fancy," she said, setting out a big spread of food. We quietly listened as she shared memories while we ate. After we'd finished, she brought out a fancy-looking cake. "This is from a famous bakery. It's really delicious," she said with a smile. Her nails were painted bright red, and every movement brought a waft of heavy perfume. "I'd rather have Cracker Jack." Mom looked at me in surprise, and Elizabeth chuckled. "Yay, I'd like Cracker Jack too." Then together, we stood up. "Mom, thank you for today. I'm glad we got to see you." "We're going back," Elizabeth said, bowing. I followed with a soft, "Thanks, Mom." Mom cried. I couldn't tell if those tears were from regret or relief. When we returned to Mr. Smith's place and opened the front door, I saw the surprise on his face. "We're back. We're back," we both said. He didn't say a word, just lit a cigarette. "I didn't think you'd be coming back," he said finally. Elizabeth took out 3 packs of Cracker Jack, handing one to him. "We still haven't found a rare sticker." In silence, we ate our Cracker Jack. "This really is the best," I said. "No rare stickers, though," Mr. Smith replied, and Elizabeth looked at him happily. For the next 10 years, we lived together. At some point, we started calling him Dad instead of Mr. Smith, though I don't remember when. In the hospital where he lay with cancer, Elizabeth held a rare sticker in her hands, tears streaming down her face. "I found this ages ago. I didn't want to say anything because I felt like we'd be separated if I did, so I hid it." Dad looked at her and smiled gently. "You two were the rarest stickers in my life." I know I'll never forget the look on his face that day. This year, I turned 30. Elizabeth has found a wonderful husband and has 3 children. "David, bring your girlfriend over this weekend. I'll make something good for us to eat." After reading her message, I popped a piece of Cracker Jack into my mouth. It really is the best. No rare sticker this time either, but it tasted like happiness. All right, next question. Is there someone you respect? Please answer in order, starting from the right. I'm Jessica, a college senior. As I go through this job hunt, I'm carrying all of my family's hopes and expectations. Today, I'm facing another interview, standing in the prepared room with everything riding on this moment. Sitting on the far right side, I rise quickly, answering in a strong voice. Yes, the person I respect the most is my mom. My voice echoes across the room. When it fades, an unexpected silence fills the air. "Your mom," a woman on the far left murmurs, almost as if she's trying to hold something back. And with that small cue, the people in the room start laughing. "Your mom, huh?" Sweat, the kind that feels like all the world's embarrassment rolled into one, trails down my back. They're laughing at me, mocking me. No, not again. Am I going to lose today too? "So you hold your mother in high regard, I see. Well then, on to the next person." I sit down quickly, and the man next to me stands up. The person I respect is this company's founder and current chairman. Those words make all 3 interviewers' eyes change immediately. "Oh, could you elaborate on that?" "Certainly. The chairman represents the company's greatest strength, and that interview really was a disaster for me." And in contrast, his responses were so impressive. With a deep sigh, I look back over today's struggle. I might really be in trouble. How am I going to tell Mom? I've already had over 20 interviews. How can I even say that I haven't gotten a single offer yet? My dad passed away over 10 years ago from a stroke. Since then, Mom has faced everything alone. She works tirelessly, day in and day out, for me and my younger brother, William. Mom always smiles, but I know she's long past her limits. And that's exactly why I have to get this job. I want to help cover William's tuition. I have to win. This time, I absolutely have to succeed. With renewed determination, I brace myself for the next chance. One morning, just as I was about to head out after getting ready, Mom stopped me. "Jessica, today is the interview with the company you're hoping for, right? I bought this for you." She handed me a single carnation. Yes, today was the day of the interview at my dream company, Anley Conest Goods. It's a subsidiary of Trendsetters Boutique, a major retail company, and focuses on developing and selling products for special occasions. The Annie in Anna Goods is named after Anna Jarvis, the woman who founded Mother's Day. Because of this, Anna Goods puts a lot of emphasis on Mother's Day, and the carnation is even part of their logo. "This is supposed to be the flower I'll give to you, Mom. You can worry about that after you get the job. Don't overthink it." Her words were so gentle, yet they stung at the same time. I want to send Mom a bouquet of these flowers with money I earn myself, but I haven't been accepted anywhere, not even at one company, much less my dream company. "Mom, what is it?" "No, I can't tell her." "Thank you. I'll do my best." Mom's eyes crinkled in a smile, though I noticed the dark circles under them again this morning. I'm so nervous. With every step closer to the destination, my heart was beating so fast it felt like it was bouncing on a trampoline. I arrived at the headquarters where the interview would take place. I checked my watch, almost an hour early. I must have been in too much of a hurry. Looking to kill some time, I left the building and found a quiet, well-kept park. There was probably no one here at this hour, though I imagined that during lunch, employees would enjoy eating here. How nice. No focus. I need to concentrate on the interview. From my black bag, the red carnation peeked out. I pulled out my interview prep notebook. I might as well do some mental rehearsal until it's time. Just then, I heard something fall nearby. I looked up and saw someone lying on the ground. An elderly man, probably around 80. His legs were twitching. "Are you okay?" I asked, rushing over to him, but his eyes were unfocused. He seemed to be trying to respond, but his words were slurred. Something was clearly wrong. "I'll call an ambulance right now." I quickly pulled out my cell phone. The time flashed on the screen, 9:40 a.m. The interview was scheduled to start at 10. It was almost time for me to go. This is my dream company, the one place I want to work most of all, the company I want to join to support Mom. In an instant, countless thoughts flooded my mind. My mind flashed back suddenly to that day. Dad, collapsing, his face reaching out to me, as all I could do was hold his hand and watch as he slipped away, right before my eyes. "Dad, please don't die. If I don't act fast, this man might die too." I stopped thinking. I held my cell phone close to my mouth and shouted as loud as I could. "Hello, I need an ambulance. Please, hurry. Thank you for your cooperation." The paramedics thanked me before they took off, the ambulance siren wailing as it left the park. The whole thing had been like a storm passing. Will he be all right? I hoped so, though there was nothing more I could do. I glanced up at the clock in the park, 10:03 a.m. Oh no, I was officially late. "Did you get lost on your way here?" the receptionist asked kindly. Her warm tone made me want to turn around and head straight home. "You must be our late arrival," a man who seemed to be one of the interviewers said. "You'll go last, then." They directed me to wait in the holding area. At first, there were many people there, but one by one, each was called until I was left alone. Finally, I heard my name called. "You got lost on the way here. The station is less than 10 minutes from here, isn't it?" "Yes," I answered, feeling the weight of his gaze. Did you go the opposite direction, perhaps, Mr. Brown? The sole interviewer in the room said with a hint of skepticism. He appeared to be in his mid-50s. There was also the receptionist by the door, the same woman who had initially greeted me. Please, show me your resume, he continued, extending a hand. Oh, of course. I scrambled to pull my resume from my bag. I wondered if he saw the flaw. Should I mention that I was helping someone in need? No, better not. Explaining myself wouldn't change the fact that I was late. Being punctual is a fundamental rule in the workplace, he said, his voice severe. This interview is not something we requested. You're the one who applied to our company. Your tardiness is a waste of our valuable time. I could only nod, feeling smaller with every word. It's a loss of productivity, you see. You should have called to cancel instead of wasting everyone's time. At least we would have had that time back. It felt less like an interview and more like a reprimand. And yet, I knew he wasn't wrong. Just then, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. The receptionist was whispering to someone outside the door. Honestly, Mr. Brown continued, sighing, by now we should have started with the real candidates. Pardon the interruption, sir. Mr. Jones from Trendsetters Boutique is here, the receptionist said, stepping back in. The mention of Mr. Jones made Mr. Brown's tone suddenly waver. Mr. Jones. Well, tell him we're in the middle of. Before he could finish, a man walked into the room, as if bringing fresh air to the tense atmosphere. Hello, Mr. Brown. I hope I'm not intruding, the man greeted, smiling. Mr. Jones, Mr. Brown said, looking astonished. Why are you here? Mr. Jones took a few steps into the room, stopping right beside me. With an assured smile, he addressed Mr. Brown directly. This interview, he said, has already concluded. Mr. Brown chuckled, a hint of relief in his voice. Well, yes, she was late, so I suppose it's technically over. No, that's not what I mean. She has already been hired. Effective immediately, Mr. Jones replied, his voice confident. I couldn't process what was happening. Mr. Brown's mouth tightened. What are you talking about? Trendsetters Boutique isn't hiring new employees this year. That was the original plan, yes, but it so happens that we have an unexpected opening, Mr. Jones replied calmly. No one told me about this, Mr. Brown muttered, looking skeptical. And by the way, intimidation tactics during interviews. Honestly, they're outdated. Mr. Jones's tone shifted. It's problematic, you know. Candidates today can just post about it on social media. What's the point of creating a hostile atmosphere anyway? It seems more like a reflection of your own frustrations. Mr. Brown bristled. Excuse me. I'd heard about your approach to interviews and decided to observe from the next room today, Mr. Jones explained, looking directly at him. Mr. Brown's face grew pale with shock. Furthermore, your transfer to Trendsetters Boutique is no longer under consideration, per the CEO's decision. Mr. Jones continued, his expression growing serious. This candidate here was late because she had been helping the CEO's father. Mr. Brown looked stunned, seemingly unable to respond. My heart raced. The CEO's father of Trendsetters Boutique. I remembered reading about them in the job listings. Their notoriously high hiring standards. Excuse me, I finally managed to say, overwhelmed by everything that had just unfolded. All eyes turned to me. Stay calm, I told myself. This was my interview, after all. And right now, I needed to ask the question weighing heaviest on my mind. Is the CEO's father? All right, Mr. Jones gave a gentle nod. Yes, he regained consciousness soon after arriving at the hospital. I believe he even mentioned feeling guilty for making a job-seeking young lady late. Relief flooded through me. That's wonderful. Later, Mr. Jones explained to me how he deduced that I was a job-seeking candidate for their company. It had been a combination of my slightly awkward fit in a new suit, my careful review of notes in an empty park, and above all, the single red carnation sticking out of my black bag. The carnation had made him wonder, and had ultimately confirmed his guess. So we'll conclude the interview. Do you have any final questions? Mr. Jones gently asked me, taking over from the now subdued Mr. Brown. Yes, I have. This really just sounds like Mr. Jones's heroic tale, doesn't it? But Mom, I wanted to finish this interview on my own terms. So I looked Mr. Brown directly in the eyes and said firmly, one day I'll be back, this time one of the employees at Trendsetter's boutique. When that time comes, Mr. Brown, I hope I can count on your guidance. After all, it's the company I've dreamed of joining.